Hello friends, it's Nancy from Astrology and Intermediums today with another weekly check-in video. I know it's been a while. I've had a little bit of a busy month just for other things kind of happening and not a lot of time to dedicate to recording. So I do appreciate you guys watching some of the scheduled videos that I had. I don't even think I had that many this month. I think I may have had just like one or two. But I hope that this video finds you well, and I hope that you have been enjoying the fall season. And as the sun moves into Scorpio season and we're moving into the cooler and colder months, I really hope that life is treating you well and that you are finding ways to kind of do what your soul really needs at this time. So let's get into a reading for this week and kind of see where the energy is going, since this is going to be the last week of October, which is crazy. I feel like October really had somewhere to be this month and it feels like it just flew by. All right, so for this week of Sunday, October 26th through November 1st, which would be Saturday, let's see what we need to know. And I'm going to be using the Halloween tarot deck, which I love using pretty much year round, but I'm going to use it for today's video. So let's see what we have. So this is what we need to know as a collective is the Four of Bats. All right, what do we need to do as a collective? We have the Fool reversed. What do we need to release as a collective? We have the Seven of Pumpkins. And then finally, what do we need to contemplate for this week as a collective? We have the Eight of Ghosts. And I'm also going to be pulling a couple of extra cards. I do have a Halloween Oracle deck by Stacey DeMarco, which I think is a beautiful deck. And I have loved this deck for so many years. So I'm going to be kind of grabbing a couple cards out of there and see what little Oracle messages we have to go with our tarot reading and kind of go from there. So we have Trick or Treat, Mischief and Play. I can never pronounce that word, so if I mispronounced it, it is what it is. English is my second language. And I'll pull another one, Cauldron. So Synergy and Healing. So I'll put those two guys there. And then I also, because for those of us with Mexican descent, we typically celebrate Dia de los Muertos, which is going to be the Days of the Dead. And we typically set up an altar for our ancestors. We, take time out to kind of venerate different ancestors, from our pets to, children to, it's every day has a special, not to say meaning, but a special way for us to kind of take some time out to kind of venerate the spirits and our ancestral lines and those that we've loved, our passed on loved ones. So let's do an ancestral healing. I'm going to be using a card out of the Ancestral Healing Oracle as well for today's reading. So know you are worthy. Okay. So let's get into this reading for this week and kind of see where it's taking us. Like, what do we need to know? What do we need to keep in mind? What is going on? All right, so for what we need to know as a collective, we have the Four of Bats. Now, typically the Four of Bats would be representing the Four of Swords card. When I think of the Four of Swords, I think that it's very much a card of like us just taking a step back, allowing ourselves to breathe, allowing ourselves to rest, recuperate, kind of find some mental peace, taking care of ourselves in different ways so that we can kind of in a lot of ways recuperate what has been lost, to kind of move on from the challenges or difficulties that we've experienced. Now, when I think of the Four of Swords or the Four of Bats, I think that it's also allowing us to have a new understanding as far as like what it is that we have had to experience, as well as like what's been lost, where maybe we have perhaps kind of isolated ourselves, kind of taken too much of a step back in some ways. And so it's almost saying like, are you doing things that replenish you? Are you doing things that make you feel a little bit more grounded, centered, and rooted in who you are? Now, when I think of swords, I think that they are a reminder of the mental, the air kind of energy within ourselves, which can be communication, it can be our connection, our thoughts, our words. And I think that this week, what it's telling us that what we need to know is that maybe it's not the time for us to be like go, 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 super action oriented. Maybe we need to kind of take a step back and kind of rest a little bit. We need to kind of reconsider what it is that we're doing for ourselves and how that is supporting us in the next thing. I don't know about you guys, but I've been exhausted. I've been sleeping much longer hours, and even when I do sleep, I'm not getting the best sleep. So I don't always wake up super refreshed and rested. And I know I've just been kind of wanting to focus on more like low energy activities, which makes it a little bit challenging because this is kind of the time period and season that I really love. So it's like, but there's this part of me that's like, oh, I just don't have that energy. I just don't want to go. I just don't want to do this. And I think the Four of Bats is kind of here as a reminder that maybe we just need to kind of honor that instead of just kind of pushing through and doing a lot. Maybe we need to kind of take a step back into ourselves and pay attention to, you know, what we really truly need or what our soul is kind of asking us to kind of process. Maybe we've been processing a lot of things that are a little bit heavier than we may understand. And so it's kind of telling us to take that reprieve, to take that time to kind of connect a little bit more. So I think that this week is going to be one where we want to focus a little bit more on like resting, on, you know, just again, kind of allowing ourselves to essentially just breathe and not put so much pressure on ourselves. Now, what we need to do, we have the Fool reversed. Now, the Fool is typically a card of like, get out there, trust, new adventures, like taking that leap of faith, kind of getting out into the world, exploring in some way. And the Fool reversed to me is kind of saying like, hold on. This is not the time to just hurry up and get out there and make something happen and, you know, take life basically by the horns and try to make something happen. This may be a time where we need to kind of sit with what is natural for us and kind of what we've been doing, focus on where our energy has been versus what we feel like we should be doing. And so I think that this is maybe an invitation for us, especially, I don't know about you guys, but I'm very much a like go, go, go. And I know like the beginning of the month is usually a time where I'm like, I got to set everything up. I got to figure everything out. I got to, you know, see how things are going to go. The Fool here, I think, is an invitation to kind of say like, hold on, maybe we need to kind of take a step back and not just kind of go after the next thing. So I think that this week may feel a little bit like things aren't ready or right, or maybe we're just not quite there to kind of go out there and do something exciting and fun and kind of break away from like the patterns that we've been experiencing. So maybe this is kind of a reminder that it's not a time to kind of start changing it all up and start doing something completely different. Now, I know with everything going on, especially here in the United States, it can feel very much like we want to hurry up and find solutions. We want to try to find a way to kind of move into the next thing. And I think the Fool reverse is kind of here to say, all right, this isn't a time to like hurry up and like, you know, do something massive and big. Maybe it's more about like the little things that we can do one-on-one in our community, like the smaller things that aren't going to feel so out of character for us or so uncomfortable for us. So maybe it's time to just kind of look within and see where maybe we haven't maybe where we do have some experience, because when I think of the Fool, I think it's very much a card of like inexperience and kind of being a little bit naive and kind of, not to say immature, like you're lacking, maturity or growth or a sense of who you are. I think it's more of a reminder of like, maybe we need to kind of rely on like what we know and what we've learned and our experience and kind of utilize that. And that's what we really need to do. All right, with what we need to release is the Seven of Pumpkins, or this is going to be the Seven of Pentacles. When I think of this card, I think it's a card that's kind of saying like, we're just like waiting. We're waiting for the harvest. We're waiting for the results of our hard work. We're waiting for the things that we've done and where we've put our energy and what we've focused on to kind of come to fruition, but we can't rush it, right? And this being like the time where harvests are coming, ready and things like that, we have to ensure that we're not picking things too quickly, that we're not taking something off the vine before it is ready for us to utilize it. And so I think what we need to release is this sense of trying to, wait until the right moment. Maybe it's a reminder that like we're never going to feel like everything is as ready as we want it to be. Maybe we're contemplating some big changes, some big shifts. And so I don't know about you guys, but I know for me, it's like I constantly question myself and I'm like, am I ready to do this? Like, is this the right next step? And sometimes I just kind of go willy-nilly and do something without really having a lot of forethought or a plan. So I think that this is kind of saying like, maybe what we need to release is a sense of we're still waiting for that invitation. We're still waiting for something to kind of feel right. And I can vouch for this sort of energy because I know there's been a lot of times in my life where I'm like, oh, whenever like it's right, it'll happen, or this, that, the other. And sometimes it's going to feel very much like you're the one that has to kind of walk through that door. But it isn't in the sense of saying like, oh, you're going to not have any experience with what you're doing. Maybe it's kind of saying like there are a lot of things that you have a lot of knowledge on and experience and the maturity to kind of move into. But the biggest thing here is that maybe you need to stop waiting. You need to release a sense of like, oh, until all of these things are ready, then I can kind of move into this thing, and then I can kind of take some action and kind of choose what comes next. And so I think with the Seven of Pumpkins, when I think of the Seven of Pentacles, I think it's very much this energy of, the materialistic, the physical, our behaviors. Maybe we're kind of waiting for, our own kind of sense and understanding of like how we should behave. And so I think the Seven of Pumpkins here can also be a reminder of like, hey, we may not always know how we're going to act in this situation or during this time because we haven't been here before. And so we just have to kind of move into the next thing and understand that we may not always have a lot of clarity about what that looks like while we're in the middle of it. And finally, with what we need to contemplate, we have the Eight of Ghosts, which is going to be the Eight of Cups reversed. So when I think of the Eight of Cups, I think it's very much a card of like the emotional withdrawal. It's a card of like moving on, kind of choosing to kind of pull away from something. Now, with this being reversed, and what we need to contemplate is that maybe we feel like I have no choice. And in actuality, maybe we have a lot more choices and opportunities than we think at this time. And so I think the Eight of Ghosts reversed here with what we need to contemplate is that it's a reminder that maybe the things that we kind of feel haven't really been presented to us yet are there, but maybe they just don't look the way that we had hoped for or understood that they were going to look like. So I think that this card, especially paired with the Seven of Pumpkins, I think it's kind of like giving us a sense of there are so many more choices here. And so we need to kind of like pick what it is that we want to do as we kind of move into this next thing. I think that maybe there's a part of us that's like, if this doesn't happen or if this happens, I'm just going to kind of like close myself off and kind of move on to the next thing. I think the Eight of Ghost here is kind of saying like, hey, as much as you may want to be ready to kind of move into this next thing, it may not always be feasible. So there's something that we need to kind of contemplate, because maybe there's this part of us that is saying, I'm hanging on till this happens, so then I can kind of walk away, like knowing full well, like I'm done with this, or this is no longer something I want to do. And so I think the Eight of Ghosts is here as a reminder of that sort of energy. It's kind of saying like, hey, you know, there may be a lot of things that don't really feel super clear, but we need to kind of just move into having this understanding about like our intuition. Like, are we tuning into ourselves, our intuition? Because I mean, we have the swords, we have the pentacles, we have the cups. And so I think that this card is very much like, these cards are kind of very much like the Scorpio energy of like the overthinking, you know, the behavior that we're kind of putting ourselves or exposing about ourselves. And then also the feeling, the intuitiveness, the, you know, connection that we have to a lot of these things. And so I think the Eight of Ghosts here with what we need to contemplate is that maybe it's kind of saying like, okay, what are we actually choosing for ourselves? What are we doing? So I think that this week may feel like some big things are happening underneath the surface, and it may feel like there's a lot of a lack of control over how we react and what we're doing in some ways. But I think that these cards are kind of saying like, you have a lot more control in the situation than you may feel that you do at the current moment. But don't forget that sometimes you just have to kind of move into the next thing without really knowing what that's going to look like or how it's going to feel. So let's move on to the oracle cards that I pulled. Very first one we have is Trick or Treat, which is mischief and play. I think that this is very apt, okay, because I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I know here on Friday we will have people trick-or-treating, kind of going around, collecting candy, knocking on doors. I know that there's a possibility for people to like do funny little gags and kind of mess with people or scare people, you know, things of like that, things of that nature. So I think that the energy with this is kind of saying like, when's the last time you had a little bit of fun? When's the last time you just kind of did something because it felt like joyful and fun for you? Very much like the Fool, right? Kind of energy. It's like you're not letting yourself have a little bit of fun. I'm not saying to go and like damage someone's property or something like that. It's more of just like, how can you connect a little bit more to the element of fun, of joy, of, you know, childhood, kind of going around, trying to collect candy, dressing up, you know, that sort of energy. I know a lot of us, like, as we get older, we're like, I don't really have time to do any of those things. And I was thinking about that the other day where I was like, oh, I haven't like dressed up in like a long time. I haven't really allowed myself to enjoy some things about, you know, Halloween or this season that I used to really truly enjoy when I was a little bit younger. Now, next up, we have Cauldron, which is synergy and healing. So I think with mischief and play, we are opening the door to healing. We're opening the door to co-creating something with the universe. When I think of a cauldron, I think of, you know, putting a lot of things together to create something new, like a soup or a tincture or something that, you know, is meant to do, you know, something beautiful with like the combination of a lot of different things. And cauldron is a reminder of that energy of like bringing things together, you know, all of the different elements in a way. You have fire, you have water, you have earth, you have air, all coming together. And then with like your spirit, so to speak, to co-create something new. And so I think that this is kind of saying like there's an opportunity here for a lot of healing. If you are allowing yourself to have a little bit more fun, to kind of get out into the universe and do something a little bit different than you have. And then finally, for our ancestral healing message, this is just saying, you know, you are worthy. I think a lot of our ancestral relationships, especially if they are with people maybe that you haven't known, or maybe people that had a very hard time being a person and having relationships on earth, we tend to forget that they can, you know, change. They can become a different sort of energy once they have, you know, left the earthly realm. And I think that this is kind of a reminder for many of us that's kind of saying like, hey, know that you are so worthy of the things that like you're wanting, the things that you are trying to kind of open yourself up to, the things that like you're wanting in your life. I think many of us, we tend to forget that. We feel like, why should I ask for this when I've already had all of these other things happen, or when there is so much suffering in the world, or when there's so many other things that are going on. I know for me personally, sometimes it can be hard because I'm like, I feel like it's very selfish to just kind of focus on like what I'm trying to do and what I want versus how can I do that on a larger scale and kind of help others with the things that I have in my life. But I think that this is a reminder for all of us that we are worthy of the things that we're wanting. And we can have a life that really is aligned with what we love, with what we need, with what we have craved, with what we have really opened ourselves up to having. So I think that this week is going to be a really, not to say heavy, maybe it's going to feel a little bit like slower, like things are not really opening themselves up quite as fully as we would like. We may feel unprepared for some of the choices we need to make. But I think the biggest reminder here is to kind of like go back into ourselves, have a little bit more fun, look at, you know, what we're co-creating with spirit, with our ancestors, and realizing like we are worthy of the things that we're looking for and what we need. So I hope that these messages resonate for you. I hope that you enjoyed this reading. And I want to say thank you so much for subscribing and being here with me. I'm hoping that this upcoming season, I'm able to co-create a little bit more content that you guys might be interested in. But I want to say thank you for joining me. Please take care, stay safe, and as always, make good choices, and happy Halloween. All right, bye.